Hello and a very warm welcome to France 24's Euro 2020 show. Belgium have knocked out defending champions Portugal in a frenetic match in Sevilla. James Messina joins me for all the analysis of the Rote Devils win, and we'll also be talking about Netherlands' shock exit to the Czech Republic. Well, defending champions Portugal are out, falling to the number one ranked team in the world, Belgium. Just a one goal separating both teams on a hot night in Seville. Borussia Dortmund's Thorgan Hazard scored the only goal of the match after 42 minutes with a sublime strike. The dip and swerve getting the better of Rui Patricio in goal. James, Belgium are through, but they had to resist tremendous pressure from Portugal late on.
Yeah, pressure definitely from Portugal, but not in the first half, that's for sure, because we definitely saw that dominant Belgian side. But when Portugal did ramp things up, I think the game definitely came much more to life. That goal obviously dampening the moods, but they needed to come back. They had no choice anymore. We're no longer in the group stages. But obviously Belgium defending really well when they needed to, also attacking really decently, and well, Portugal not getting those balls up there. We saw Cristiano Ronaldo asking his team to come up to give him those balls because he was touching very little in the first half. A bit lower than him, obviously. We had Renato Sanchez, who was everywhere. He just non-stop. It was curious actually why he actually came off. I'm not sure. He was looking just as fresh when he came off to me as when he just got onto the pitch. So good efforts there, obviously, but I think a big part of this for Belgium was for Portugal was the tension that was on the game and really boiling over in a way, because when obviously with all the fouls and the cards that we saw tonight, in the face of that, Belgium was much more composed. And in the end, I think that's what allowed them to really stay in the game. You could see it on the players calming each other down and not getting into this, this excitement that we saw on the Portuguese side. And that was a massive, massive advantage for the Belgians. Obviously, Portugal unlucky because, they could have, that post could have gone in.
They hit the post through Rafael Guerreiro. There was a good header as well by Joao Felix. Another good strike by Ronaldo. But you're right, we saw a different side of this Belgian team. One that so far breezed through the group stages, I think it's safe to say. But tonight, really defensively strong. Yeah,
and I think one of the sides that says a lot about Portugal tonight is that when De Bruyne came off, that should have made things theoretically easier for Portugal. Did it? It didn't at all. So, I mean, Belgium doing what they needed to do there. And, that save that we were talking from that header from Courtois was fantastic. I mean, again, that was an unlucky side for Portugal. But, yeah, their threats are great. They're clearly showing why they're the number one team tonight.
It's now Belgium-Italy in the quarterfinals, James. That promises to be an incredible match. Both teams had a 100% record in the group stages. Both teams struggled in their last 16. What are the expectations there?
I think, both struggled, but Belgium tonight didn't need 94 minutes to find a goal against the defending champions. One thing that they didn't do, putting them at an advantage. And we talked, obviously, those goals from Pessina, from Chiesa. If anything, if Thorgan Hazard does anything like he did tonight, I think we're in for a great, great show because that's going to be, this is two teams who are going to be battling it out, putting everything in. It's going to be great.
Are Belgium going to have a full team at their disposal? Because Kevin De Bruyne went off injured.
Exactly.
We had Eden Hazard pulled up with what seems to be a hamstring injury.
Yep.
So, does Roberto Martinez, he's not going to be able to stick with his initial team, is he?
No, we don't know yet. Obviously how De Bruyne is doing. But one side, obviously, that is a worry for Belgium because of their defence, which I would say is an advantage that they have over Italy. Are they going to be losing that advantage now? We're going to have to see how the players are over the next few days.
And finally, James, let's let's talk about Portugal, Ronaldo. I suppose it's tough in a way because they got such a big team in the last 16 because of the third place finish rule, the new format of the Euros, of course, for the last two editions. Can we say they were perhaps a little bit victims of this format?
Victims, but also, if there wasn't this format, would they have got through? With this, these 16 teams going through out of 24. I think tonight really showed, where they were able to go through, and we saw how they did struggle in their earlier games. I think it's a huge, shame to see the defending champions leave so early. Obviously, a shame for Cristiano Ronaldo not to go on and go through these records that he's been equalising and setting so far, and huge disappointments for many of them in the team because some of them, do we know when they're going to next be playing in an international tournament? Some of them are aging, thinking, of course, about the star man there. But those are things that will be going through their mind. I don't know whether it's going through their minds right now, but it is a bitter night for Portugal for sure.
Portugal certainly licking their wounds there. 24 shots on goal. Belgium had just 6, to put that in perspective. Well, there was another match and another incredible result. The Czech Republic have produced the biggest shock of the tournament by beating the Netherlands 2-0 in their last 16 match. Despite finishing third in Group D behind England and Croatia, Jaroslav Silhavi's team played a superb match to knock the Dutch out of the tournament. The game changed after Matthijs de Ligt handled and was shown a red card. Thomas Hulles then headed in the Czechs first before Patrick Schick scored his 4th of the tournament after counter-attack. James, it's the first massive upset in this Euro 2020.
Yeah, massive. I mean, the Dutch coming in with 3 wins. We weren't seeing that one coming, absolutely. And in this, obviously, against one of the third best placed teams, this wasn't a result that we were expecting to see at all. And we were talking about the strength in that Dutch side. We were talking about that Wijnaldum, Depay. Didn't see that tonight. Wijnaldum touching very few balls in the end. So really, there was this, but there were also a lot of mistakes, I think, on their side. Malin, how that goal didn't get in. I know, obviously, the Czech goalie was, he had to dive or nothing. He went for it. It worked, but that would have obviously caused a lot of frustration on their side. And then, obviously, unmarked players on the other side. Holes when he scored unmarked against there. So some errors.
More credit to the Netherlands. More credit to the Czech Republic for producing a fine display, or criticism of the Netherlands not turning up for the game?
Do you know what? I mean, obviously, I'd want to see the highlights for the Czech Republic, but I do think it balances out in the two because we didn't see. It's a similarity to Portugal from earlier on. We saw the Dutch lose their cool. De Ligt and that red card. I mean, where did he think that there was no VAR? Because we were bound to see that. I mean, it was blatant, and maybe it wouldn't have been seen. But if in front of a packed stadium like that with VAR, of course, that was just. I mean, I think it showed. They just seems
perhaps a little bit of a lack of experience. Let's not forget this is a very young Dutch side. And just before we move on that, James, let's hear from the Netherlands head coach Frank de Boer, who spoke after the game.
I need to take a look in the mirror. It wasn't our best game. Please let me make this clear. It's not that we didn't dominate. In the second half, we had even more control, dominated even better the game. We also created 2 good opportunities, but this is top sport played on the top level. You play with details that can decide the game. Then in 1 minute, the whole world is turned upside down for just a moment. This was when we had to make 1-0, but we didn't do it. These are hard lessons to take. At the end of the day, I'm responsible. So yes, I am the one to blame.
So we just heard Frank de Boer there taking responsibility for what is a huge disappointment. And he did gamble, James, by moving away from the Dutch's historic and treasured 4-3-3 formation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his responsibility, because he did take that gamble, and it was a gamble that obviously caused a lot of upset for many fans, and that was working. That 3-5-2 was working so far, obviously with a few errors on the way, as we saw in the group stages. But traditionally, that Dutch side, which goes for the 4-3-3, which is very much, high pressure on the attack, and which they've been using for decades. This was a decision to, revert from that. It was.
But does that mean they didn't have the players? Are we seeing a group of Dutch players who are missing Van Dijk, who are missing a really good centre forward? No Van Persie, no Ruud van Nistelrooy. Yeah. Where was the link?
It's different times as well, and maybe why he wanted to bring in something else in that way. But I think there's one thing that we don't know whether he's going to be given another shot at this point, especially from what we've heard from there. But I think there's one thing for sure, is that the Dutch team will be reverting back to that treasured formation.
Well, we'll have to see the future for the Dutch team. We just have a few seconds left to show you the programme of the last 16s coming up with, of course, 2 games on Monday. And what games they promise to be. The World Cup finalists Croatia take on Spain, and what promises to be a really really open tie. And then, of course, France against Switzerland. The France at 24 Euro 2020 show will be there to preview that game, to bring you up to date with all the latest information surrounding Les Bleus. For now, it is the end of this show. James Facina, thank you very much for your analysis. A reminder that Portugal have been knocked out by Belgium and the Czech Republic dumped out the Netherlands from the tournament. That's all from us. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to the channel. Bye-bye.